Hello and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened. Boy, do we have a fun show for you guys. Denise, would you like to introduce our guest?
Today, we're really excited to welcome Julie Rieger. And Julie began her career in advertising, working her way up from entry-level roles to executive roles very quickly. A breakout moment was when she was voted by Ad Age magazine as one of the women to watch in 2007 for her accomplishments in advertising, which included managing the global spend for Hewlett-Packard and winning 20th Century Fox for her employer, Zenith Optimedia. 20th Century Fox bought her over from the agency side in 2008. Since that time, she's overseen record-breaking movie revenues, including Avatar, Deadpool, Deadpool 2, the X-Men trilogies, The Martian, the Ice Age movies, Planet of the Apes reboot, and others. In her 10 years at Fox, her efforts oversaw the release of 221 movies, totaling almost $14 billion in domestic revenue. In 2018, Julie published her book titled The Ghost Photographer, a Hollywood executive's true story of discovering the real world of make-believe, that became a bestseller. Julie is happily married to her partner, Suzanne Taylor, and they live in Sherman Oaks, California. Thank you so much for coming on with us today, Julie.
Oh, thanks for having me. And it's funny, you know who wrote that wiki? Because I think that's what that's from. The funny thing is my brother wrote it. Isn't that funny? He's so sweet. He goes, I think we need to have a wiki on you. I go, okay. We've actually since then moved kind of close to where my home is, originally home, I guess, where I grew up. How about that? Mm-hmm. We moved to Fayetteville, Arkansas. So when Disney bought Fox, I was my last position there. I was president, chief data strategist, and head of media. Very fancy title. And they let all the presidents go. So I have my own presidential library at home, and it's my own book sitting on the shelf. And that's what I say, that it's my presidential library, because all former presidents have libraries, and that's mine. So anyway, we're in a big fat red state. So hello, red state people. Nobody on the call, but that's where we are now.
Oh, but it's beautiful there.
It's stunning. It really is.
With that impressive resume, I don't know. I always think of executives and, movie moguls as being more into, well, let's produce a Harry Potter and let's not live it. So tell us how this all came about. I mean, how did you move from this really, really impressive career to also then going, okay, I think there is something magical going on in reality?
That's such a great question. So does it count that I was part of How to Train Your Dragon, at least for like a spectacle, okay, good.
I loved those movies.
Oh, me too. Toothless. You know, what's so cool about that movie is that they created Toothless based on a dog. That's why we all love that movie. If you think about it, the way that he moves, his devotion, he rolls on the ground. I mean, he's like a dog, just FYI, everybody. So not what you asked, but you'll find I'll probably rarely answer your question straight on. So it was not a plan for me to visit the cosmic wilderness, much less live in it. It was a bit thrust upon me, which I think is what happens to a lot of people. I was not born with any psychic gifts. I was born, I think, with none, or at least that I can remember. I'm sure we all are, but I was certainly not privy to what they were at the time. And what happened, I'm trying to get my years down here. I guess it was right after 2000, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And after a 10-year battle, when she died, I don't say passed, she died. I mean, her body died. She's still around. She's hanging out. I'm sure you guys see her too. She's a bit, talk about following me around. My dead mother follows me around a lot. But she's fantastic. But when she died, it was more devastating than I could have ever imagined. And I was so broken and so lost. And I can even get teary talking about it, which is so strange because I can be such a smart ass and then snap fingers and I can start talking about her and start getting all teary about her. But that's love, right? I mean, grief is the badge for love. So I was so devastated. And what started happening, it was so interesting. It was, I started seeing ghosts in photos. I was like, what is happening here? And I still have this very dear friend And we have a podcast on iHeart called Insider's Guide to the Other Side. And I don't want your folks leaving you for us, but if they want to add on, it could be a fun show for them. I cuss all the time in it. But Brenda, so she and I were friends prior to, when this was going on. And we also lost one of our best friends to a car accident around the same time. So I was just a broken human being. I started seeing these ghosts and photographs. And I remember I sent one to Brenda. Suzanne and I just got home from a trip to New Orleans, which was meant to be a drunk trip, by the way. But we get back from this trip. We love New Orleans. And I take a picture of, like when a bird flies into a window and they leave, I call it a bird stain, but you can see like the oil and the dust. In this photograph, you could even see the beak. And I was like, this is crazy. And I took a picture of it and even went outside to look for the bird carcass, and there wasn't one. And I sent the picture to Brenda. And she says to me, she calls me her elf. It's the whole thing. She goes, open your eyes, my elf. Do you not see the spook in your picture? She calls ghost spooks. And I'm like, oh my God. And that was the beginning. And then after that point, I have a very obsessive personality. So I started taking pictures of everything. And then I started looking at everybody else's photos. I would go out, and if I was your Facebook friend at the time, I'd be trolling your photos and finding ghosts like crazy in it. And I did. And I found them in pictures of people in restaurants where there's a big, like indoor glass, right? Or a mirror or whatever. I'm seeing ghosts everywhere. I'm like, what's happening? Why am I seeing these? At one point, Suzanne had said to me, she goes, well, since you have all these superpowers now, we had no idea what was happening. She put up about 10 or 15 bird feeders in our backyard in Sherman Oaks, and not a single bird was coming. And she's like, conjure me up some birds. So I'm like, all right, first thing I do is I go to Etsy and I find some spirit animal oil. By the way, this story is for a lesson of people not to do. So I go and find this animal spirit oil and I get some crystal points. I put them around. I just start doing this stuff, right? I start putting these points all around that are soaked in this animal spirit oil. The next day, you could hear the birds down the street from our house because hundreds of them, all these beautiful yellow finches show up. So come to find out, I opened a portal. Yeah, no, I'm like, this is a story of what not to do, folks. Do not do what Julie did. Makes for a great story.
Like a Snow White movie or Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds.
It's a little Hitchcock with yellow finches. And so then I'm taking more photos. I have a collection of over 10,000 photos now of ghost photos of things that were just in our backyard. Some really fun things, some like what things, like I have one of a frog with a crown on. I call him King Frog. It's very strange stuff. In fact, if your listeners can't see this, but you can see some of them behind me in my recording room up above my head are, I call him Black Eye. So all these crazy things started to happen. And then not long after, I started getting, more of the psychic superpowers. So mediumship is one of the things that came quite natural at this time. So I've been able to, talk to those on the other side. I've actually gone through training as well. I went through training because I ended up, instead of hiding from it or avoiding it, I dove head first. So I'm a certified transcrystal therapist now. I took mediumship training for 2 years. Also channeling. That was last summer. Yeah. So learned to leave my body. That was fun. So really just went in head first with it. And I will tell you, like, once I was able to shed who I thought I was and be open to become, my world turned upside down in all the best ways. And what was really crazy about it is my work got better. Like at the time when all this was happening, I was an executive vice president at Fox, which again, nothing to sneeze at for a small town girl from Mama, Oklahoma. I feel like I've been living in a bonus round for years. And my work got better because all of a sudden I got even more creative than I was. I got more strategic than I had ever thought I could be because I was open and I was listening to the other side. And I'm telling you, I brought up Toothless a second ago because that was a DreamWorks film. And I used to have meetings with Jeffrey Katzenberg weekly. In fact, they were on Tuesdays from 4 to 5 Pacific time. Weird, I remember that. Can't tell you what I ate for breakfast, but I can tell you that. And And I recall multiple times my mouth opening, and what came out was not mine.
Yeah.
Was not mine. And I even I channeled a kid's book, which I still have. By the way, I haven't done anything with it, called Billy Ghost. And that was all through automatic writing, not on purpose. I wasn't like, I'm going to automatic write today. It was all of a sudden I'm sitting there and my hand starts going and I did not know what was coming out. So because I was so open, and boy, talk about creativity coming from the other side. I mean, it crashes down regularly in the best ways. So it helped my career. I ended up when I was at Fox, and how it helped my career is that I came up with this idea to use data in a way that our industry had never used before. So I'm also a nerd, which is weird. Like I can talk about all this stuff, but I'm also a bit of a nerd. I had this idea to build this customer intelligence group and to use data to make the company smarter. When that I went to our CEO, who I have a really funny story about her with the other side, and who says that? Nobody. And she, so she loved the idea. She promoted me to be a president, gave me the title of chief, data strategist, and off to the races. So opening up made everything better. My relationship got better. This is our 29th year together, and I couldn't love Suzanne more than I do today. I'm relatively fearless. I say relatively because nobody's truly fearless, but I'm relatively fearless. I regularly, I'm too am an empath. And if you guys want to talk about how to deal with being an empath, we can go down that path all day long. But through all of this and opening up, shedding all the bullshit, made me a better, happier, grounded, more fun, intuitive, gentle, many ways, also tougher in other ways, human.
And that's so spot on, because I'll say a lot when I'm doing readings for people, both hemispheres light up. And, but so many people will be getting intuition. They'll be getting nudges. They'll be getting, those little stepping stones put out, but then their logical mind, they'll double guess the shit out of themselves. And they'll say, oh, I'm not psychic. I'm not intuitive. But exactly what you just said, it opens up to this richness and allows us to live more fully and completely on the planet. And now that we all have smartphones, we can take pictures of, especially I live here in New England, and I go around the small towns and old barns and old windows and catch those reflections and catch that energy. And I'm usually, and I would love to know if this happens for you, I'll be drawn, like I'll be walking along with the dog, and I'll be drawn to look up at a window, or I'll be driving and I'll like slow down by a house and I'll just feel almost a pull to look at that house. And that's when I get the reflections or the pictures. Do you get that as well?
All the freaking time, all the time. And I'll tell you, if you don't mind, if I tell you guys a story? I don't know how you guys do. I don't know how many breaks you got. Oh, you'll just cut me off.
Oh, no. We love a good story.
So, and it's about this because I get a lot of direction from my guide, from my main spirit guide, and his name is Jacob, which is really funny because they give you the names, right? Okay, and because I don't know a Jacob, and that's why he did it. It's very clear to me, and so he's with me all the time. He literally guides me. He protects me when I do mediumship. He protects me when I do channeling, but he also saved my life. And
we got to hear that.
And I did a dramatic pause on purpose because he did save my life. So Suzanne and I, when we lived in LA, we lived in Sherman Oaks, which is what they call over the hill. And we lived off of what's Sepulveda Boulevard. And every day I would take Sepulveda to the 405 and over to Century City, which is where the Fox lot is located, or it's now, I think, maybe the Disney lot. So one day I was headed on to Sepulveda, and I used to love my commute time because I used to catch up with people. I'd get on the phone. My best friend since 1978, I have spoken to every day. In fact, she lives 5 minutes away from us now. So I first call every day was to Cubby. So I called Cubby, she didn't pick up. I made some other calls, nobody picked up. And I'm in my car, my radio was off, and I had my left hand on the steering wheel. And as clear as you hear my voice right now, I heard, put your other hand on the wheel. And then I heard, if the phone rings, don't answer it. In fact, don't look at it. So here I am, and I'm going to act it out for you guys. Here I am. My hands are 10 and 8, or 10 and 2 on the 10 and 8 would be weird. 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. And I'm driving and I am super alert. And then this beat happens. And after that beat, I hear there's going to be an accident. So at this point, I'm on the 405. I'm at Santa Monica Boulevard. And by the time I get to Wilshire, the two cars in front of me collide. And it was about 60 seconds, because that's about a mile from Santa Monica to Wilshire Boulevard. And because I was prepared, I slam, but then I pump my brakes so the folks behind me know that something's going on, so we don't cause a whole, massive accident. I slam on my brakes enough to where I literally missed the car in front of me. I'm going to tell you guys, honestly, it's inches. I mean, if not an inch. Like I didn't bump him, but it was really close. And of course, my handbag, everything is all over the car, all the contents. And so I get out, check, make sure everybody's okay, do my thing, get back in my car, make my way to work. And I call my wife, Suzanne, and I tell Suzanne what happened. And she goes, well, you seem so calm. And I said, well, I was ready. So like when you're ready, you're calm. And she goes, well, who do you think it was? And she goes, do you think it was Mona? And Mona was our friend that died in the car accident and who was a very gifted. This is actually the second time she died in this lifetime. So she was an NDE. And I said, no, it was a man's voice. And she goes, what? I said, it was a man's voice. And she goes, well, call Patricia. Patricia's a friend of ours that owns the Crystal Matrix in Atwater Village outside of Pasadena in the LA area. Very gifted psychic. She's the one who taught me channeling as well as transcrystal therapy. So I call Patricia and I tell her the story. And she goes, well, darling, she goes, odds are that was your spirit guide. Have you ever met your guide? I'm like, one of your guides. I said, no. And I said, well, it's a good, and of course, me being a bit on the, egotistical side, I'm like, well, it's a good thing because I could have really hurt that person in front of me. And she goes, no, darling. She said, your guide was saving your life, not the car in front of you. I'm like, well, shit. So that's half the story. I get to work and I'm like shaken. I'm like, what the hell? I just heard a voice telling me this thing was going to happen. It happened. What am I supposed to do? Holy shit. All day. That was my feeling. Not holy crap, holy shit. Because that happens and you go down the shit path, right? Like, holy shit. So I told you I cuss like a sailor. That's compliments of my mother. So then one of the people that I had called earlier in the day was a woman named Pam. And Pam is Mona's sister. And Pam was in the car when Mona had the accident, when Mona died. And those two were the closest, bestest of friends. And this poor woman, absolutely positively still devastated. So after work, I called Pam and I launch into, where the hell were you this morning? You're never going to believe what happened. And I go down this whole thing and I'm just like word vomiting, not even letting her speak. And she goes, I thought her response would be something like, holy crap, no way. Her response was, huh. She goes, want to hear the other half of your story? And I'm like, okay. And she said, you know how I get depressed and I stay in bed? I'm like, I do. She said, well, this morning I had the phone in bed. It's 3 hours later where she lived, where I lived in California. So if it's 8 o'clock for me, it's 11 for her. And she said, I was laying in bed, I had the phone and I saw that you were calling. And she goes, and I went to go pick up the phone. She goes, but my body was paralyzed. She goes, not one time in my 51 years have I ever not been able to move when I asked my body to move. She goes, I could not reach the phone. She said, imagine what would have happened if I would have picked up the phone. I said, I'd be dead today. She goes, yeah, you would probably be dead today. And then after I spent time with it to understand it better and talk to Jacob, once he and I met more formally. And when we met formally, by the way, I sobbed like a child. And my teacher was like, are you okay? And she goes, what's going on? I said, I'm just thanking him for saving my life. And I am like bawling with gratitude. And I think what's so crazy about the story isn't just the fact of what the story is. It's what's behind the story. And what's behind the story is what spirits do every day, all day, to help us, to help protect us. The coordination that happens on the other side is mind-boggling. If you think about it, if you think about from the beginning of the story of all the people I was calling who always pick up for the record, and what must have been distracting them? to not pick up the phone. And by the way, they all have stories of what distracted them that morning. To, I guarantee it was Mona who was making sure Pam could not reach the phone. And all other guides, angels, spirits, whoever was on there who was active that day, because they don't take vacation either, by the way, that of what had to happen to protect or to take the chance, the gamble that I would listen, right? So think about all the effort that they go through. It's a gamble because you don't know if your human's going to be paying attention. The gamble they took that I pay attention and what it took just to save my little old life. And that's just one little old life in the sea of billions on this planet. And I think that's what's so incredibly magical and what really, really shifted and changed who I am fundamentally.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. And I hope it helps people, because we'll get emails saying, well, where was my angel when such and such happened? Or where was my guide when such and such went on? And your story emphasizes that not only are they always there, but we have to listen and act on the guidance. And then other people around us have to listen and act on the guidance. Something else we hear from listeners a lot is, I read all these books about psychics and mediums, and they saw ghosts as kids, and they knew they were psychic from the age of 6, and I don't. And I love it when people like you come on and say, I had no psychic experiences as a child, and yet here I am. And so I think that's really important for people to hear. Why do you think your mother's death was the catalyst for that?
Oh, it's fun. I've been asked this before. I honestly, I think like with everybody else, we all are on our own path. And I think it was my turn. It was my time. I don't have any other better reason than that. I can give you all the human things. I can give you all of the stuff I learned in psychology class about what grief does to us. I could go through all of that, but I actually think the truth is that it was finally my time. I don't think I was open enough to it prior. I think that I had, funny enough, I think I was being primed. I think our friend Mona, who lived up the street, who was very gifted, and she was like clair cognizant. She knew stuff that she shouldn't know. Mona never read a page in her life. She not only had never read, she wrote a book. She also knew about all the 5 major world religions without ever learning it from anyone. So no practical education that was happening. So I was being primed by these people. I was being primed when I met Brenda, Brenda Villa, who's my co-host. And Brenda is one of the most gifted psychics. She's, I'm sure there's lots of gifted. In my world, she's extraordinary. And if it was not for Brenda, I would probably be sitting in the corner, rocking back and forth, because she literally saved my soul, helped me through all of it, made me feel not crazy, made me feel confidence, told me to trust, like really was. I honestly don't know what I'd done without that woman. So I feel like I'm spending the rest of my life doing what's right for Brenda and living the right life, because I do believe that I would be, if not dead, I'd be rocking back and forth.
Rumi says, you have to have a broken heart to have an open heart.
Yeah.
And so I think often grief is that catalyst, but also once we open up and say, okay, yes, this is who and what I am, the spiritual tribe shows up. And you're a great example of that. Which it
shows up. And then I think the other thing, Samantha, that happens that is so fascinating is we are constantly tested. Brenda said to me multiple times, I would call her and say, oh my God, this happened. Like we had a little poltergeist incident happen at our house. My intuition kicked in, and because I am at heart, I'm a warrior, right? We're all different things. Brenda is love and light and marshmallows and pixie sticks. And, I'll shiv you. Like I won't think twice about it. I'm a protector. It's my nature. So she would always say, you're being tested, my elf. And so people need to think about, and this is the magic about actually being present. And so that is actually the gift I was given, was being present. And because of that, I started to see things. I started to see patterns in things. I started to understand about, for instance, I guarantee you the people who reach out to you, because I get a lot of the same, not the same people, but the same type of folks that will say, well, it doesn't happen to me. Why don't I get it? Why me? Why not me? Why not me? And I'm like, I don't think you're paying attention, darling, because it's the little things where they will show up in simple, stupid things. Like there was one morning, and this is before, by the way, the Jacob incident happened. where I got a message of, you need to put your shoes away or the dog is going to get them. Now, let me tell you something. Dogs never ate my shoes. Not one time did the dogs ever eat my shoes. So I dismissed what that was. I come home from work, my damn shoe was eaten. And by the way, what a gentle way to teach me a lesson, right? Just eat my shoe. It's fine. Even though I have a high arch and a wide foot and shoes are hard for me to find, it's still a really great lesson to get relative to being in a car accident, potentially dying or being severely maimed. I'll take that any day of the week. But I think people have to be present. I think they need to pay attention. And then they start to find out who they are. They start to find out where they get their signals from. They start to, and so when the big one happens, they're there for it. And so for me, I was there for it. I guarantee you people get them all the time. They just don't know. Like that time when you're standing on a street corner and you get the message, your foot's about ready to step off that curb and you get the message to put your foot back up and you do. That's what that is. I think people mistaken it for some subconscious thing or something like that. And don't be mistaken that there's assistance out there all the time, and listen.
That's beautiful, beautifully said. And on your podcast, The Insider's Guide to the Other Side, one of the episodes that I really, really loved was on how it's not the ghosts that haunt us, it's the earth lessons that haunt us. Yes. And I just was fascinated with that. And I was just listening to it and giggling when you were talking, because that's it. I don't like the scary woo-woo stuff. Samantha loves it. She just wants to peek behind all those curtains. I don't. And I can do the photography. I can feel the energy. I don't need to go looking for it. And it feels different to me if I can take a picture and see the ghost and all that stuff. But could you go expound on that a little bit about the earth lessons that haunt us? Because it was really, really interesting. And I think our listeners would be.
Yeah, we talk a lot. Yeah, we talk a lot about Earth School is hard. Brenda has said it since the day I met her. And I remember the day I met her, by the way. It was at our, we have gay husbands. Everybody needs them. I hope you guys have them. Everybody needs gay husbands. Samantha just raised her hand. Everyone, just for the record. But I remember we were at our gay husband, Ruben and Jimmy's house. And Brenda is a friend of Ruben and Jim's. And I had not met her. And it was right after Mona died, which is about 5 months after my mom did. And Brenda came up and she put her hand on my back. And it was between my shoulder blades. And if everybody knows what that location is, it is the back part of your heart. So just for the record, she put her hand on there and she read me like immediately. And she said to me, she goes, "It doesn't have to be this hard," is what she said. And that was my introduction to Brenda. And so what we talk about are these Earth School lessons. And I've had them that haunt me. And the one that has haunt me is that I had a very abusive stepfather, very abusive, not sexually, in case people are rolling that through their head. But he was physically abusive. He was emotionally abusive. And I have been getting this lesson from old white guys my entire life. And sorry, white guys out there, but talk to your people. If you're not an asshole, then talk to the assholes. Don't let them know that that's what they are. Because they are so hard on women. They're rough on women. And I kept having I'm going to call it his archetype, keep showing up in my life until I figured out how to deal with his archetype. That's an Earth School lesson. And that's something I came on this planet to learn. And I am very clear on that because it's something that you've dealt with. I'm 52. I have no shame in my age. I'm 52. I've been dealing with this bullshit since I was 5. And so I know what it is, and I can see it now from a mile away, and I don't have to engage in it anymore. It doesn't have to go in there and wreck my life, because that is one of my Earth School lessons. We have them constantly. With people, when you start to pay attention to who you are and you start to pay attention to patterns, those are Earth School lessons. And here's my warning for everybody. If you don't learn it the first time, it gets harder the second, it gets more harder the third, and it becomes impossible after that. So pay attention to your own patterns, because what I ended up learning from all of that is my inclination at the time, of course I was a kid, was just to hide from it and be quiet about it. And then what I started to learn when I started getting bullied by these guys again, was to face it and truly face it, and also go to the resources that could help me. So I dealt with it at Fox. I ended up going to HR and dealing with it that way. And those men were fired from Fox, by the way, everybody, because I got the guts to deal with it. And it's hard. I don't care who you are. If you have a vagina, life is harder. It just is, especially when you have, in corporate world. It doesn't even have to be in corporate world, guys. It could be in a gas station down the street. But I started paying attention to how I'd handled something, and then I handled it differently, and it stopped.
That is,
I learned my lesson.
Well, I think women can be just as mean as men too.
Oh, women are not our better angels, sister. I am with you. I think they can be bullshit.
I have a very mean mom, and that kept showing up in my life too, with cruel female bosses. And I did the same thing you did. I documented and went to HR and faced it, and that helps so much. You've got to just face that fear. And, Denise is right. I do love, unfortunately, I love scary movies, and I love studying about demonology and the jinn and all that scary stuff. And I have another podcast called Psychic Teachers with Deb, my friend Deb, and she hates all that stuff. But I make her do spooky shows every October, and she kicks and whines and hates it. But I said to her one time we were recording, I said, would you rather be locked in a windowless room with a serial killer or a demonic entity? Because personally, I'd pick the demonic entity, because I know with my faith, I could just call on my people and that thing's out of there, right?
Okay. Okay. You know what? I am so glad you're bringing this up, because there is something I think we need to talk about. The difference between a ghost and a conjured entity. There is a difference, and they live and they operate in very, very different dimensions. I would be fine, to answer your question, I would be fine if I were stuck in a windowless room with a pissy ghost. I'm not so sure I'd be cool with a conjured entity. And those happen a lot. I mean, I also do exorcisms now. Like, I went up to Kansas City in the middle of COVID, and I don't know, Denise, if you listened to this episode, but it's called Suck It Succubus, part 1 and part 2. You guys should go listen to it. I won't bore you guys with it's not actually a boring story, but it took us 2 hours to tell it. So, but it's called Suck It Succubus, of my first exorcism. And that was, St. Michael doesn't know what to do with them, because it's not a part of St. Michael's ecosystem. My guides, angels, don't know what to do with them. It's not like, it's not their world. So you have to go into more of a witchy place to go deal with them, because it's kind of witchcraft, dark witchcraft that brought them in. So you have to use witchcraft to get them out.
Interesting. Because I always think of Archangel Michael as the one who kicked Satan out. So if he can kick him out, he could certainly kick a lusty succubus out.
Nope. No, it didn't work. I tried.
Well, Rosemary Ellen Guiley, she says the ones that the archangels don't work with in that way, that they aren't necessarily demonic, that those are the jinn.
Oh no, these are demonic.
Those are demonic.
Yeah, they are. Well, because they're brought in, because I think your listeners know, we can create. We are creators. We can create through thought.
Hopeless.
And so when you deal with some entities back in the Mesopotamian days, I'm not going to tell you, by the way, that the demon that I was dealing with, the name, because I don't want anybody to know, for everybody's own protection. I also don't let anybody know where I buried it. I don't let anybody know any of these things, because you can conjure them by your own thought. So, but they created these entities. These were not humans. And what happens now is that, God, I mean, people put the damn Ouija boards away. Don't do stupid shit. I mean, just don't play. And that, in fact, some of the stuff, even some of the books people read, can conjure things that they don't realize what they're doing. So, but anyway, so they are conjured through sex magic is a big one. So you'll get people that are doing these different rituals, so on and so forth, and they read these witchcraft books. I encourage people to stay away from those. And they literally can conjure these. And but they are from a different world, and you cannot use the typical stuff. I am the queen. Listen, I can get rid of any ghost. I mean, I really can. I don't normally do this, but I call myself a master at ghost hunting. I can get rid of those suckers, and not hunting as in for a show. I mean, I really can find them. I can get rid of them. I got the energy, got the power behind me. I even use, I have holy water, not from Etsy. I have sulfur. I use salt. I am the queen of black tourmaline. I get it from Tibet. It is the most magical black tourmaline. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Denise, Matt sent you some. Extraordinary black tourmaline.
I have it right here, and I hold this when I do mediumship now, and I added that to my repertoire. It's incredibly good juju in this stone.
I've never met black tourmaline like it before.
No, it's very different.
Yeah, it comes from a single mine that I cannot pronounce, but it's written down in the foothills of the Himalayas on the Nepal side of the mountain range, and I get it from one miner, and we actually have bought all of it. So I have about 1,000 kilograms sitting in our warehouse right now. But I use black tourmaline. So I have the physical stuff. I have the spiritual stuff. I ain't afraid of no ghost, but the conjured stuff is scary as shit, you guys.
Okay. And that's a really, really, really good point, Julie, because, and I say this to a lot of folks, people are opening doors. We opened a door. We did this ceremony. We did this. They do not know what the hell they're getting into. And I mean, I've shared on the show before that I've had some shamanic training, that I've gone to different realms. I understand what's out there, but I think that it's not a party game. This is serious. This is not shit you want to mess with.
Yeah, don't do it. If you don't know what
right.
you're doing, don't do it. By the way, have you been to the Dragon Realm? I have, and was amazing. And that happened the night before my mediumship skills kicked in. Crazy.
Wow.
Very vivid. I could retell it. But it's like I went into the Dragon Realm. I encountered 2 different dragons, and literally the next day, Suzanne and I were driving to Phoenix, and I said to her, I go, honey, would you believe me if I told you that your sister Sally was here with us? And her sister Sally had died like maybe a year prior. And she goes, yeah. And ended up having a conversation for 3 hours with her sister Sally. And that's what happened. And then boom. Yeah. Dragon Realm. Anyway, love the realms.
Yeah.
Well, tell us your Airstream story.
Oh yeah. So this has nothing to do with anything spirituality. It's just stupid and funny. So, because Denise and I are talking about how much we love our Airstreams and love camping, love a good Airstream. But back in the day when I was traveling internationally, I was running HP's advertising and I had 101 countries. And I started taking Ambien. And I don't know if you guys know, people will sleepwalk, they'll sleep eat. Another thing is there's other things that happen in sleep. So one morning I woke up, I look at my phone and it says, congratulations, you've won. And I'm like, well, what did I win? And I click on it and it was an Etsy notification. No, sorry, it was not Etsy. It was, I said Etsy way too much today. It was the other one that
eBay?
said,
eBay?
eBay, thank you, it was another E. And eBay, and it says, congratulations, you've won. Apparently in the middle of the night, totally messed up on Ambien, I bought a 1986 35-foot Airstream on Ambien. Kept it too, by the way. And ended up redoing it, donated it to fire victims. But the funny thing is, a very odd friend that people would say, but a very good friend of mine is John Schneider from Dukes of Hazzard. He and I met at an event years ago, and one trip, Suzanne and I were in New Orleans, and we had dinner with John, and at the time his girlfriend Alicia. And I'm telling the story about the Airstream, and Alicia slams down her fork and she goes, finally, somebody else. And I go, what are you talking? She goes, I did the same thing, but bought a Porsche. I'm like, oh my God. She bought a used Porsche on eBay when she was asleep on Ambien.
Wow. Okay. But you do have an Airstream now. And
yes.
And you guys travel. Do you do exorcisms like
on the road?
Yeah. Because that's a TV show.
It is, and I refuse to be on one. So no, you know what? If somebody is in crisis and they find me, I will go help them. This is not a living for me. This is a service. You know, this is the time in my life, especially going through what I did and how much that I had healed through it, that, you know, this part of my life is very much about service. So, if I feel like I need to go, I will. There's actually one in Kentucky I need to go take care of, to be totally honest, but I try to do it from afar. Sometimes I need to be there to take care of it. But no, it is not what I use for my ghost. It's not my ghost busting Airstream. It's more to take the dogs out to a lake. But yeah, anyway, no. So the exorcism stuff that yes, I do that. But I also listen. I like to play in the light. Don't get me wrong. But I will deal with the dark because I'm not afraid of it. And it was funny. One time I was at Brenda's house. It was during my book tour, and we'd already been friends for quite a while. And so this was 2018. And I had this event in Cincinnati, and we were just in the living room, just shooting the shit, talking. And I start to tell her, "Did I ever tell you that I got bit by a panther?" And she goes, "What?" And I showed her on my wrist where the tooth went through, like it went. You can see it enter the entry wound and the exit wound. And she goes, "No, what are you talking about?" And I tell her this story about I was raised Episcopalian. It was a youth group trip to this little area called Grand Lake in Oklahoma. And there was some Tiger King, is Oklahoma. So this crazy shit happens in Oklahoma. Let's just be real clear about it. So this guy owned a lion and a panther, and our youth group goes over to his house, and our pastor walks up and said, "Can we walk around?" They're like, "Hey, you can pet the panther. It's trained." So I'm the last one to pet the panther. Now, I'll tell you, I also looked it in the eyes as I put my hand. I'm going to act it out for you guys. So I put my hand through the bars, and it grabs onto my wrist and starts shaking, right? So in a weird moment of panic, I'm very calm. And I say, "Please let go." Who does that? I was 12. Anyway, our Noel, who is our pastor, gay pastor, by the way. Yes. Thank you, God. And releases my wrist from the panther. So I'm telling this story to Brenda, and Brenda goes, "Well, finally." I go, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "It finally makes sense." She goes, "I've been wanting." She goes, "You know what the Black Panther does?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." She goes, "Well, Julie," she goes, "the Black Panther walks between the two worlds, between, our world and the underworld, and protects this world from the underworld." And she goes, "They pretty much invited you into their club when you were bit and survived, this Black Panther." And I was like, "Oh, I guess that does make sense." So it felt like I was indoctrinated into the Panther world, and which is part of the reason why I do all the crazy stuff with the darkness that I do. I don't join the darkness. I just fight against the darkness, I guess is the best way to put it.
And that's spot on, because Panther is about going into the dark void.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. And I think that, the more we pay attention to all the animals, all the signs in nature, it's amazing how interconnected we all are.
Yeah.
It's fascinating shit. It really
is.
It
really is. It's crazy. So, if you survive an animal attack, don't be surprised. If there is something spiritual that comes along with it. Because when I was 5, I was at my friend Michael Kemper, who, by the way, used to wear my nightgowns. I don't know why. He's a little cross-dresser back in the 70s. But I was at Michael Kemper's house, and he had a German Shepherd, and he and I were playing ball, like we were playing catch. I was very, very sporty lesbian when I was young. And so we're playing catch, and I think that his dog thought that we were playing keep away from it. So the dog came over and attacked me, and I have a scar about 3 inches long on the back of my head from this German Shepherd. Now, I was petrified of German Shepherds for most of my life, but guess what animal that has always shown up for me since I was a kid? A wolf. I actually have 2 that follow me around.
I have a long scar on my arm from a dog situation years and years ago. But and you're right, the animals will show up and let you know that they're there with you. Years ago, my ex-husband and I and our son, my oldest son was 18 months old, and we went all up through the Yukon, British Columbia, did the loop around Denali, and we were out in the middle of nowhere camping. And my son, little kids will sit and paddle in the water like that. And we looked up, and there was a grizzly coming straight across. And, everywhere you look, there's always, "Don't run, don't do this." Well, I'm sorry, instinct will kick in. I grabbed the baby and started running like shit. And my ex-husband, God love him, he knew what to do. And he stood there and he did the arms, and the dogs were going wild. But I've always known in my soul that that was really, really significant, not only for me, but for my son, with that grizzly, that bear energy, which when you get into the pineal gland and intuition and all of those things, but animals will show up and let us know they've got our backs, which is cool as hell.
Here is my bear. Just so everybody knows, I'm showing them one of my stone bears. Yeah. I call on my bear when I can't sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because I need to hibernate. So call on a bear for that.
Are you writing a new book? Because it feels like you have a lot more stories to share.
Oh God. I feel like I'm a little one and done. It was hard. I'm OCD and ADD, and writing a book was like, it tested all of those things. I don't think so. Who knows? I still have a lot of years left on this planet, so I could like spit another one out, but not right now.
1 page a day. What did John? 1 page a day.
Oh my gosh, you're so great. No, I don't know. How
about vibes? Tell us about vibes.
Oh yeah. So, it's funny. Brenda and I, we started this little e-commerce store to serve our listeners because, we had some stuff that other people didn't have. And I wanted it primarily for Black Tourmaline because I kept talking about this Black Tourmaline. And so many of our listeners were like, well, we want it. And so I'm like, well, shit, I got to figure out a way to get it to people. Being a e-tailer was never, in my dreams, because it's a lot of work. So we started this little store for the show. And it was actually, you could get it insidersguidetheotherside.com is what it started out being. And then it kind of took off and it's really meant for, a different kind of metaphysical store. And also Brenda created her own tarot deck as well. So we're selling her tarot deck, Black Tourmaline, blah, 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 blah. And it turned into, we call it Vibes now, VIBES.store. And actually one of your listeners, how we got connected, one of our partners is Matt Lee. We'll call him Maddie. And another one, obviously, is Brenda, but we have Catherine Gallagher, who is a star in her own right. She was on the show You on Netflix. She's also on Jagged Little Pill on Broadway. She won a Grammy this year. And her dad is Peter Gallagher, the actor. And so she's a good friend and she's a partner as well. And we've just created this, this thing. We really love it. We also, we do a lot of, we'd like to do a lot of good in the world. So we donate a lot of money. I'm not a very good businesswoman. I tend to turn and give it all away. So we actually donate quite a bit of money to an organization called Joyful Heart Foundation that protects women. We just did a big thing for Abigail Disney. So, we provide a lot of, stones for things like that. But yeah, so we have Vibes. It's fun. It's a shit ton of work, but we love it.
And we love Matt so much. And he sent us Black Tourmaline and Brown Tourmaline.
Oh, yes, the Dravite.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know it's a fancier word, but
Dravite,
both of those stones are just the vibes in them are absolutely phenomenal.
Well, that Dravite comes from the same mine that the Black Tourmaline does. So so they're both tourmaline. So one's a brown tourmaline, one's a black tourmaline.
Right. Well, the Black Tourmaline feels like a dad, like a very positive, protecting dad, and the brown tourmaline feels like a snuggly mom.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Together,
very much.
I love working with those two stones. It's very grounding. It's very protective, but it's also very nurturing. I read the book You, and I haven't seen the Netflix show yet because the book You scared the crap out of me.
We should watch the show and see Catherine.
Peter Gallagher, so I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, Peter's great. He's also on Grace and Frankie.
Oh,
Season 7 of Grace and Frankie. Yeah. So it's really funny because my wife Suzanne is recovering from a surgery and has been watching a lot of television, and so she's finishing Grace and Frankie. And so I called Catherine. I said, Catherine, I have seen your dad every day for the last 2 days, and it is just the funniest thing. And she goes, I haven't watched it because I know that he kisses Jane Fonda, and I just can't. I just cringe. I can't watch it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So The Insider's Guide to the Other Side is your podcast.
Yes.
People can find that everywhere, not just iHeartRadio, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's wherever you find your podcast. Spotify.
And where can people find Vibes?
They can find Vibes at vibes.store. So it's www.vibes.store. And if they want to shop there, they can use a discount code ELF, ELF, and they can get 15% like first time. And I would encourage people, if they do want to be involved in this, is to sign up for the SMS, because we'll do promos and stuff that we'll only send out to the SMS folks. That's thanks to Matt. He knows how to do all that crap.
Perfect. Well, what I'll do is I'll post links for your podcast, your store, and your amazing book as well. We'll put that in the show notes and on our social media.
Oh, thank you.
We'd love to have you back on, because I feel like we've just touched the scratch of the surface here.
Oh, I think there's so much. And can I tell you one other really quick story? And this one's for you, Samantha. Like it is to your heart. So when I was writing my book, one afternoon, I'm sitting in the living room. I look at Suzanne and I said, we need to go see The Conjuring 2. And she's like, what? I said, there's something in there and we just have to go see it. We have to go see it now. And like, I mean, it was a compulsion. I had to go see this. I wasn't going to not see it. And I said, I'm going to go whether you want to or not, but I have to go see The Conjuring 2. So we go and we're watching the show. And mind you, there's two things that came out of it. One was immediate and the other one was more delayed. But if you watch The Conjuring 2, you will understand the difference of a ghost and a conjured entity, because in there, she had to know the name of the entity to get power over it. So just FYI. But the other thing is I'm watching, and this is the real story about the haunting in the UK back, I think it was the 70s. It's a true story. Probably one of the most documented ones. We were introduced to the family and one of the kids stuttered. And I looked at Suzanne, I went, oh shit. So it wasn't what I thought it was. Oh, I didn't know what it was. She goes, what do you mean? I said, I have to write about being a stutterer. I said, I just, even if it's a line, I just have to, because I don't think about it anymore. You know, I went through all the stuff, dealt with it, you know, speech therapy, took public speaking courses, all those things. And I'm like, I need to let the stutterers know that they don't have to always stutter. And it was a weird thing, but it was a horror movie that I had to go see to address as an adult that being a stutterer. So just so you know, it's the weird things that will bring you to a horror movie. Also, The Witch was another one. I had to, in fact, a friend of mine is a producer of The Witch, and he went and did all the research. Did you see The Witch?
No.
Oh, girl, go see The Witch. So he did all the research for it. But it was like pre-Salem witch trial stuff. I was compelled to go see that because they use the Lord's Prayer. There's a scene in there where the dad starts getting the family to say the Lord's Prayer when one of the kids was being overtaken by an entity, by spirit. And that's how I figured out that when I could find ghosts, bad ghosts, negative entities, is I say the Lord's Prayer. And if at any point I skip, stutter, or forget the words, there's an entity there. And I watched that movie and it was confirmation. And then I even got more confirmation after that about other people that have used the Lord's Prayer to really be a ghost detector.
Yeah, you see that a lot in the Haunting in Connecticut story too. But
yes.
You know what's so funny? So I love all of this stuff, right? But the minute I have 3 daughters, the minute the oldest hit the teen years, I have not watched horror movies or read like scary stuff. I'm waiting till they're no longer teenagers because I studied so much about poltergeist in the teen adolescent years, you know?
But here's the thing for girls, and here's why horror movies are so good for girls. And this is the former Hollywood executive speaking, is horror movies actually teach girls, help them what to do. So when I was growing up, want to know one thing I knew? Don't go up the stairs.
Yeah.
That all came out of horror movies, guys. So, but there are things, you know, that help young women cope through horror movies.
No, I totally agree with that. And we do watch enough Dateline to help them with some of that.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
But I read so much of Harry Price and so much of the England Society for Psychical Research. And they all say that all of that scary stuff happens when there's usually two or more pubescent girls in the home. And I was just like, okay, they're
that's
also
fair.
psychic. I'm so psychic. It's a big old stew. I'm not going to add to it by reading, these spooky things or taking them to these spooky movies. So no, I haven't
funny.
seen Conjuring 2 or The Witch, but I will. My youngest.
We'll take them to see Booksmart. How old are your kids? Booksmart is one of my favorite comedies.
Okay.
It's rated R. It's fantastic. I'm also a member of the Academy, so I'm an Oscar voter, and so I get all the movies. And my favorite movie a couple years ago was Booksmart, and it has Beanie Feldstein in it, and it's rated R. So just again, I'm saying it twice. But all your listeners, watch Booksmart. It is one of the funniest damn movies, and it was so underrated, and it's fantastic.
I'm going to add that to my notes. Okay.
Oh, it's so great. We've watched, Suzanne and I have watched it no less than a dozen times, because when somebody would come over, we're like, let's watch Booksmart.
That's what I need, because everyone around me, what's the one that won the Oscar last year? The Parasite?
Oh, Parasite. Yeah.
I haven't watched it because I'm like, there's so much to be sad about in the real world. I don't want to watch this. So.
Yeah, I did not vote for Parasite. I did not vote for Parasite. No, and if I'm not mistaken, I did Black Klansman was actually my number one pick that year.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Great vote. Great vote.
I thought Black Klansman, too many K's in there, was extraordinary. Literally too many K's. Extraordinary. I loved it. So that was my pick for that year.
Well, I will definitely check out Booksmart, because throughout this whole pandemic-y time, I'm just focusing on positive, love, light.
So watch Mom. If you have Hulu, watch Mom.
Oh, I love Mom. I do love.
We've watched Designing Women repeats.
Oh, I can quote it back to you.
Episode 1 is the best episode on television, period.
Totally.
So I'm going to encourage everybody to do that. But yeah, we could do a whole other show about what to watch. But I know you guys are probably running out of time. And yes, I would love to come back and talk to you ladies.
I will tell you, Empaths used to have a vacation home in my town. And I would ride my bike back being like, is she on the beach now?
Oh, that's so cute. I love her.
Love her.
I love it. Jean Smart, by the way, we've been seeing her in a lot of stuff. Oh my God, she's fantastic. Did
you see her in the new detective one on HBO?
Mayor of, yes.
Oh, so good.
She's also in another show called Hacks.
Oh.
And very, very different characters. Yeah, I love Jean Smart. And then of course, we've had a Jean Smart month. It's been very strange. And I love her more now than I ever have. Anyway.
I loved her character on Frasier.
Oh, she was great.
So funny. I'm like, Charlene, what happened to you?
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. As you guys can probably tell, we could talk to you all day. So
I would do it too. We could do a marathon and we could do a 7-hour episode.
I really do hope you'll come back.
I would love to come back, and thank you for having me on. It's so great thank you for letting me see you, because you both are stunning and your soul is even more beautiful, but it is so nice to see you, in human form.
Thank you.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys, everybody, for listening. Please remember that I will post all the stuff that we talked about on our Facebook page and my Instagram and in the show notes. And please remember, as always, to show up, do great work, and share your light.
Take care.